Sandy says read, and welcome to the channel. This afternoon, we are going to do a review of Trailer Park Parable by Tyler Zed. You guys, this one is a memoir. And you know, here on this channel, I'm not usually reviewing memoirs. So please, I'm going to ask you right up front, please give me a little grace. Please please be patient with me. I'm going to do my best to give this a good, honest review and talk about it as respectfully as I can, because this is it's a good story to give people, insight, to give people information, to help people deal with trauma, to help people deal with just some like ugly things that may have happened in the past, people who need to deal with PTSD. There are like hidden messages in here that I think would be valuable. So I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it with as much dignity and respect as I can. Although, you know, guys, usually on this channel, I'm talking about fantasy characters. I'm talking about speculative fiction stories. Usually I'm bringing you stuff that is not real. This is very real. This is true story happening right here. Okay, so I'm going to slow it down and we're going to talk about this respectfully. Okay. All right. Let me begin with the specs. This is Trailer Park Parable by Tyler Zed. Copyright is 2024 from Post Hill Press. This version is 207 pages, although I believe it is also available in Kindle. And I'll put that link in the drop-down box below for you. Let me read the back cover, okay? The back cover is attempted murder victim told the Brainerd Dispatch she believes her 16-year-old son saved her. This is the news article detailing the event that would drastically change Tyler Zed's life and that of his family forever. Growing up in a small town in Minnesota, Tyler and his two brothers filled their days with chaotic fun, from playing hockey to building forts to making their own home movies. The household was also full of addiction and abuse that ultimately led to their father attempting to murder their mother on Christmas Eve, 2007. Trailer Park Parable follows Tyler and his family before Christmas Eve 2007, the events leading up to that night, and the years afterward. It trails the boys as they deal with varying degrees of PTSD and their own battles with addiction before they eventually turn their creative coping mechanisms, like their YouTube channels, into million subscriber successes. From living in a trailer park to running a multi-million-dollar business, Trailer Park Parable highlights a true American dream story, countering the popular narrative that tells us you may as well not even try. The system is rigged against you. Okay, so let's look at, I have a little synopsis written down here about this. Basically, we get to see Desmond, who is Tyler, Desmond, Devin, and Bo, the three brothers. We get to see them growing up with cousins, with family, with friends, with a lot of like support and family around them. But even with all of that support and even with all of that family and friendships and such around them, there is this like dirty monster in their house. There is this monster of abuse that they fear and that they just tremble away from in their home, because their father is an alcoholic. And he's not just a drunk, he's an angry drunk. He's not one of those guys who gets drunk and is like so happy and laughing. No, he's an angry drunk. And he is portrayed in here as the kind of person that you don't want to say the wrong thing in front of him because he'll fly up the handle. Tyler says throughout the book, he'll snap. And Tyler's worried that if someone says the wrong thing, his dad will snap. And it's that snap that Tyler's always walking on eggshells to avoid. And I made a note in here that walking on eggshells that Tyler mentions like several times throughout the book, I can relate to walking on eggshells, not because of abuse. I don't want to imply that. I don't want to imply that I empathize with the abuse part of this. Please don't hear that. But I hear, having to walk on eggshells because you don't want to get in trouble for something, right? When I was growing up, my dad was writing a book, and it was a very technical book in nature. So he had to concentrate. So he would go into the basement and he would be writing down there in the basement. And the rest of us, my sister, my mom, and I were upstairs. And my sister and I had to be very quiet because if we broke dad's concentration, we would get yelled at, right? And you'd be grounded. So we couldn't have our radios on. Back when I was allowed to listen to the radio, I couldn't have my radio on, or it couldn't be loud. When I would walk on the floor, I would walk very quietly. And I learned to walk very quietly because, when you live in a ranch style house, the heating ducts and the heating vents are underneath the floor, and those things, they're hollow and they pop, right? They pop and they creak. So if you make the heating vent pop or creak, that will break dad's concentration and you'll get yelled at. So I learned to walk very carefully, very quietly, like walking on eggshells. To this day, I walk carefully and quietly. I can sneak up on anyone and I don't realize that I'm sneaking up on people. It just happens because, yeah. So I understand that walking on eggshells concept of like being quiet and being careful and not wanting to say the wrong thing either. Not because of abuse. Please don't hear that. Please don't hear that. But I get it. And so whenever Tyler would talk about, walking on eggshells or trying to keep like their friends who had come over to the house, trying to keep them quiet so that dad didn't get mad, I heard that. I heard it and I understood it. And I felt Tyler's anxiety through the pages. All right. I want to read a little snippet for you, as we do in these reviews, to give you a feel for the author's voice. Okay, so let's go to page 36 and give you a feel for the author's voice. This is from year 2011. And the way Tyler has put this book together, the way he has set it up, is that we're zigzagging through time. We're not getting a straight linear story. We're getting snippets of that fateful night at Christmas Eve. And then we're like flashbacking to childhood and getting childhood stories, and then flashing forward to how Tyler dealt with some of these things from childhood in his future, how he dealt with some of the issues from that fateful night when he went into the Air Force, when he became a medic in the Air Force, the different ways that he coped with factors that happened later. We're just seeing that in a nonlinear fashion, and that helped build a lot of suspense, which we'll talk about too. But here's a snippet from page 36 to give you a feel for his voice. In the year 2011, he was dealing with college and trying to make some decisions about it. And it says, I could not, and still can't, understand why they wanted me to pay $80,000 to $100,000 for a degree that didn't guarantee me a job. I also couldn't understand why half of that money is spent on taking mandatory liberal arts classes like women's studies and feminism in America. I actually got into a fairly heated argument with my guidance counselor, asking why in the hell I needed to take 3 semesters of Spanish classes. I simply couldn't afford 3 semesters of something I would likely never utilize. The universities say these classes are to make you a more well-rounded person, but that's far from the truth. I know many people with degrees who are awful people, and the least well-rounded people I know. And you know what? He turned out just fine going the route he took. So, yeah. All right, so there's our author's voice. Now, I mentioned the suspense. And in fact, I think I mentioned the suspense in the January wrap-up that I filmed just a little bit ago, because I read this right there at the end of January. And there is like snippets of suspense going throughout this book. And so on page 70, I even wrote down here in the margin, awesome Columbo moment, because we have this like life-defining incident that happens to these boys on Christmas Eve 2007 when their father tries to murder their mother. And I'm not going to spoil what happens. I'm not going to give away the things that take place that night, how things come about. You need to read this book and learn what leads up to that moment and learn how the boys deal with it. You need to read that for yourself. It is moving. You need to read that for yourself. But we have those snippets coming at us throughout the narrative, throughout the story. And there is a suspense that builds throughout the story Of course, when that night happens, when there is this domestic violence, um, the police come. The police are called. The police do come to the house. And one of the officers is not interrogating, but is speaking with Tyler after the event. He's about to let him go when he says, let's see, we stood up and he shook my hand. As we were about to walk to the door, he remembered something. Ah, I'm sorry, one more thing. I know you got the knife from under your bed, but where exactly did you get that knife before that? That was amazing to me. And I wrote, awesome Columbo moment. And that ends that section. And we go into more. There's more. We go into more from another time. Yeah. Tyler did a very good job of doing the flashback and the flash forward to keep us moving through the narrative. I thought that was cleverly done. Oh, let's see. Where are my notes? The book does talk about the grandparents as well. Tyler talks about his grandparents, whom he loved dearly. They were a good support to him. And he mentions how the grandfather kind of had this sneaking suspicion that Tyler's dad was not going to be the right husband for Tyler's mom. Kind of knew that wasn't quite right. And let's go to page 46. Is that word? Yeah, page 46, where there was this moment where I wrote down here, same. It says, this was where they're about to have the wedding. Although Grandpa supported Mom and her new family, he kept my dad at arm's length. He didn't fully trust him yet. Grandma once told me, Mom was about to walk down the aisle to marry Dad. Mom was crying. Grandpa allegedly told my mom before he walked her down the aisle, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And when I read that, I underlined it. I wrote same because when I was about to get married, I was nervous. I was a nervous wreck. I was shaking. And my dad leaned over and told me, it's not too late to back out. He told me I didn't have to go through with it if I didn't want to. It's not too late to back out. And I was surprised by that. I was startled by that. Yeah, I was an idiot and I went through with it. But yeah, I was startled when my dad said it's not too late to back out. And there it is happening right there. Grandpa was saying, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. But she wanted to, and they got married. Let's see. Okay, despite all of the abuse, all of the alcoholism, the drug abuse that Tyler's father was doing, all that he was putting the family through, Tyler still learned lessons from his father, and not just don't do drugs. I mean, he did learn lessons from his father, and I sensed hopefulness, and I sensed forgiveness, and I sensed good messages coming through this narrative in here as well. And I found one on page 124 that I wanted to share with you all because the positiveness of it was just good. I thought it was something worth sharing. And it reminded me of, I wrote in the margin, no guts, no glory, no pain, no gain. That's what this section reminded me of. It reminded me of when I was back in high school, when I was in band, our director would tell us, no guts, no glory, no pain, no gain. And it's kind of what Tyler's dad was saying in this section, I believe. And it says, it is the best lesson Dad instilled in me. Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. It seems contrary to what kids are taught today, or at least what the mainstream message seems to be. Today, we are not supposed to feel any amount of discomfort or anxiety. At least that's what we're told. If you're nervous or have an ounce of anxiety about work or your upcoming family event or anything at all, then something must be wrong with you and you need a pill for it. Again, that's just what we're told. Put one foot in front of the other. Have confidence in yourself and the work you have done to be a good wrestler, and everything will work out how it's supposed to. You can do this, Dad would say. You will be happy you did it when the day is over, I promise. And he was always right about it. To this day, I use those lessons to help me push through things, and it works. That is an awesome message to end this video on. I mean, that's just an awesome message. There's hopefulness in that. I felt like some sense of forgiveness in that. I just felt I felt a good lesson in that message from his dad and in Tyler sharing that message from his dad with the reader. There are a lot of heavy themes in this book. Obviously, domestic violence, drug use, alcohol abuse. There are a lot of heavy themes in this book, but it is a good memoir to instill just some knowledge, to instill some wisdom. I recommend it. I can recommend this book for you guys. You guys, I hope that I did this book a good service. I hope that I got the message across to you guys that it was a positive experience to read this memoir, and I hope it will be a positive experience for you guys as well. Thumbs up for good memoirs that teach us good things. You guys, please subscribe to the channel. Please click the bell notification icon so you are notified each time I bring you a new book to read. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in.